Hello, I'm JTO556, and today I've got a rather complicated tutorial for you, but I'll do my best to make this as easy as possible to follow. Have you ever been playing on a server and had someone use the last netherite upgrade template without making a backup? Maybe you've spent weeks searching for the silence armor trim, only to be so excited that you put it on your armor without duping it. Or maybe you play on a hermitcraft like SMP and want to make a nice shop. Perhaps you just like having fun redstone contraptions in your single-player world. In any case, this build is going to solve all your armor trim related issues in a fairly cheap way. The contraption you see behind me is an entirely bufferless, zero prefill vending machine for armor trims. It requires only one of each trim and is entirely tileable. This means that you can build this to accommodate whichever trims you have and very easily expand it when you find new trims or when new trims are added to the game. Before hopping into the tutorial, let's do a quick demo. The first thing that you're going to do is throw 7 diamonds into this chest. Then we're going to come over to the selector panel and select which trim we want. I think this one looks cool. So we can hear the machine activate, and while the lamp is on, we know that the machine is running. Now we can head over to our output chest and see that we've got the trim that we selected. If we come back over here, once we see the light turn off and hear a chime, we'll know that the machine is done running and is ready for a second input. The principle behind this contraption is fairly straightforward. Each slice stores one armor trim and the materials to duplicate it. We input the 7 diamonds needed in all trim recipes, and then when selected, the desired trim and the additional block needed are transported to our shaped recipe crafter. The crafter duplicates our trim, outputs 1, and sends the second trim back to its designated slice. In practice, however, we need to make use of some very specific timings and rather compact wiring that makes this build somewhat difficult. Now it's time for a couple of caveats. This build is not meant for the mass crafting of a single item type. It is designed to be able to provide a variety of trims. There are much faster and simpler options available if you just want a large quantity of one trim type, like, say, netherite upgrade templates. Next, this design cannot be spammed. It will break if you do not wait for it to finish before making additional selections. Finally, you can input additional diamonds if you're going to make multiple selections, but I highly suggest always putting in the exact number of diamonds for the number of trims you're going to make. If there are not enough diamonds, the system will break. The wiring for this design is rather difficult to build, and I highly recommend using a feature of Forest of Light's canopy add-on called Flippin' Arrows to help you get all components facing the correct directions. I'll link that in the description below. This tutorial is going to be split into 2 parts. First, we're going to build the shaped crafting module, and after that, we'll build the trim selection slices. As per usual, the material list is in the description. The slice materials are for 1 slice, so multiply that by however many slices you plan to build. Everything is going to be built moving backwards and to the left of our starting point. For the full 19 slice machine, our dimensions are going to be 28 blocks wide, 12 blocks deep, and 14 blocks tall. But I recommend giving yourself a little bit of extra room on all sides for the sake of decorating and ease of building. To start, place a barrel left of our starting block, and a hopper going into that block. On top of this, we're going to put a double chest extending to the left, and in line with our output, we're going to put a crafter facing into the double chest. Next, place 4 hoppers in a line leading into the crafter from the left side. Place a solid block behind the hopper closest to the crafter. Now place droppers facing into the remaining 3 hoppers. From here, we want an observer powering dropper 1, watching dropper 2, and we want a solid block behind this solid block that we placed earlier. Next, go ahead and put redstone dust on top of both of those solid blocks. Now we're going to drop down a level, and we want solid blocks in these positions here. Place an observer powering the block underneath dropper 1, watching a redstone lamp, and an observer pointing upwards into this block here. Now, a target block with redstone dust on top, right next to this redstone lamp. Back to our top layer, place redstone dust on top of the solid blocks behind our redstone lamp, and 2 repeaters on 4 ticks, pulling from the observer watching dropper 2. And have these pointing into a solid block. Now to layer 3, we want solid blocks in this configuration. In this little shape in the back, we want a repeater pointing away from our starting point on 4 ticks. And we actually want one more solid block here. Then a left turn, and 2 redstone dust with a repeater on 1 tick pointing into the solid block here. Now we want 1 redstone dust behind our target block, and a solid block above that. Now we can put a redstone lamp for this observer to watch from above, and 1 more observer to watch it from the back. This observer is going to power a repeater on 4 ticks, which is going to need a block to support it. Into this lamp being watched by 2 observers, we're going to put 2 repeaters on 4 ticks and 1 redstone dust. This whole circuit is going to be what inserts our crafting recipe into the crafter in the correct sequence to get the shape we need. Now we need to put a circuit in to tell when the materials are ready and activate our crafter. Starting here, you're going to go diagonal down and back, and then repeat this 2 more times, plus a 2-block diagonal on the end. When you're finished, it should look like this. Now put a repeater, pulling from this redstone lamp, on 4 ticks into the second block of your first diagonal. Finally, you need to place repeaters in these 6 spots, snaking back on the bottom, a redstone dust, and then moving back to the front of our build with 1 final redstone dust directly to the right of our crafter. These repeaters should all be on 4 ticks, except for the last one, which should be on 2 ticks. Now moving upwards, into our 3 droppers, we want hopper, 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 glass, barrel, barrel, air, hopper, hopper, glass, and then to come around to the back here, we want a hopper, and then we're going to go up 1 more, and finally a hopper pointing into the back here. Now we're going to put in our diamond input. I'm going to put 5 solid blocks here, and then we're going to put a trapped chest. Now we're going to come around to the side. We're going to have a 1-block gap here, and then we want a dropper facing upwards. We can go ahead and remove that block there. We're going to come up 4 blocks, and then to top it off, we want another dropper facing into the side towards our crafting module. Now we're going to want hoppers leading from our trapped chest into our dropper elevator. Now we're going to build a very standard auto dropper for this tower. We want a solid block there, an observer pointing into it, sticky piston facing upwards, solid block on top of the sticky piston, comparator reading from our very bottom dropper, solid block on the other side of the sticky piston, and a redstone dust on top. Now we need to build a torch tower to power every single one of these droppers, and we're going to start that on the side of our bottom block right here. Solid block, redstone torch, solid block, redstone torch, and solid block. Now we just need to take some glass blocks and put them here, 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 and then just containing this area. And when you're ready to, you can put a bucket of water right here. Now we're going to build a very similar system, but this time it's going to be for our armor trim return. And this is going to make sure that we always have one trim left in the slices when one is put into our output chest. The first thing you're going to want to do is come over to the side here, and you should have a nice little 1 block gap. And on the side of our sticky piston that we just placed, you're going to have a dropper here, and then you're going to extend this line with all droppers pointing straight up until it is 9 blocks tall. Once your droppers are in place, we're going to build another auto dropper, but this time we're going to have the comparator pulling through a block. So solid block there, comparator, sticky piston facing upwards, solid block on the other side of the sticky piston, and a redstone dust there. Next, we have a rather particular observer layout. Into your second dropper, you're going to want 2 observers powering into it. Then we're going to skip a dropper, and we're going to go observers all the way up until our second to last dropper. Next, we want an observer watching this observer here, and then we're going to continue this chain all the way up until it's level with our second to last dropper. Now we're going to take 4 hoppers, and we're going to place them going this direction so that the dropper line is shooting straight into our hoppers here. Finally, for this system, you're going to want a hopper pointing straight down, a barrel, a hopper, and then we're going to just lead this line all the way back around, leading into our tower. Like so. Now we're just going to place a little bit more glass to help contain our water streams for our remaining 2 droppers here. Once you've done that, you should have something that looks like this, stopping just 1 block short of this final hopper here. Now we need to put in the system that's going to trigger this whole circuit to activate when we want it to. To do this, we're going to take a comparator reading from this hopper here. We're going to have that go into a copper bulb. Then we need another comparator, solid block, redstone dust, solid block, And then we want a repeater on 4 ticks, solid block, repeater on 4 ticks, and then we're going to actually break this glass block here, and we want a sticky piston facing downwards. And on the face of that sticky piston, we're going to just put one more solid block. And one more solid block on top of the sticky piston. And this is our core crafting module done. Now I'm going to show you how to build one of the slices that our armor trims and their materials are actually going to get stored and distributed by. I'm only going to show building one of these, but they're all identical, so if you want more, all you're going to have to do is continue the water streams out, continue the hopper line out, and just build this exact same slice over and over again, and then just put in whichever trim and its respective material that you want. Now, each of these slices is pretty hectic, but we're going to try to build this in a somewhat reasonable and survival-friendly way. The first thing we're going to do is go 2 blocks out from our chest here, and then we're going to go up a block here, and we're going to put a button, redstone lamp, and then another solid block on top right here. This block right here is going to get a copper bulb behind it, and then a comparator is going to read off of this copper bulb. Going directly back from our copper bulb, we're going to want a solid block, a repeater on 1 tick, a solid block, a repeater on 1 tick, and then a sticky piston facing downwards with a target block on its face. Now we're going to work our way backwards. We're going to have an air gap here with a repeater on 1 tick, solid block, redstone torch, repeater on 1 tick, solid block, torch, and then we want a solid block underneath of our copper bulb. Coming back up now, we want a block on top of our copper bulb, and a redstone torch right on this block here. Now we want to take a solid block and put it on top of this redstone torch here, and then we want a redstone torch on both sides of this block. Then we're going to take a repeater on 1 tick, and we're going to have it facing forwards. You might notice now that when this copper bulb is on, so is this redstone lamp. And that is going to be our main safety system in making sure that we don't spam this contraption. Finally, for this level, we're going to have a 1 block gap there, solid block here, and then we're going to move right on up with a repeater on 1 tick on top of that solid block, pointing into another solid block. We want a block on top of the redstone torch here, and then another redstone torch on the side of that. Next, we're going to want some kind of block here, because this is where our water stream is going to be, and then we're going to put our first dropper in, facing towards the front of the build. Then, we're going to take a redstone torch and put it right there. Now, we want a hopper leading into our dropper, another hopper into the back of that, and this should line up with your last hopper in the line that we installed in the first part of this video. Then we're going to take a solid block and put a redstone torch on either side. Now we want a solid block, a torch, and then a glass block, or any transparent block, but this cannot be solid. Next, if you'd like to, you can put another block on top of this, just to have these hoppers have something over top of them. Since this is where a water stream is going to go, we're also going to want a block here. Over top of this torch here, we want a solid block. And then we want 2 repeaters. And then 1 more solid block. Now we can put in our second dropper, and this one is going to be for the extra block needed in all of the smithing template recipes. And you want that to be facing downwards. Then you're going to need a block there to support a comparator, and then a solid block and a redstone lamp. And this is going to act as an in-stock, out-of-stock guide. So when this lamp is on, you know that you have materials in this dropper to craft whichever template you need. To finish off the slice, you're going to want to put a hopper leading into this dropper on top here, and a barrel. Now, obviously, you're probably not going to be crafting thousands of any of the armor trims, but the barrel is a nice convenient way to put like maybe an item frame here with whichever item you need to put in there, or, you know, anything like that. It just makes it a little bit easier to access than just having the dropper here. If you are building the full version, I highly recommend putting in the armor trims when you get to this point right here. As you're walking along, it is super convenient. You just put in your 1 trim and you are all good to go. If you wait until the end, it's also no big deal. You're just going to have to put a little scaffolding up here and then go along. And at that point, you might have a little bit of trouble remembering where everything goes. And, you know, if you mix up a material and a trim, then it's not going to craft correctly and the system is going to break. So it's better to do it when you're certain where everything belongs. Now, a keen viewer may have noticed that some of this circuit isn't actually doing anything yet. This sticky piston and target block, for example, it's not accomplishing anything. So that's because we still have one thing left to do, and this part is getting left till the end because it's going to vary highly depending on exactly how many slices you are doing. So what that's going to be is the reset system. So I'll demonstrate real quick here. When I click this, it's toggled on, and that triggers this, okay? So we need a system that resets everything and turns it to an off state. The reason we want this to be toggled on and stay on is because we are doing this without any filters. So when this is on, this hopper is unlocked, this hopper is unlocked, or rather, this hopper is unlocked. But when we turn this off, you'll notice that this hopper locks. So if you have many of these slices in a row together, you can avoid needing to have a bunch of extra armor trims by not using a filter and instead having only the slice that you're using have only its hopper be unlocked. And that saves us a lot of the trouble of making filters and fitting one of those into a slice. But it means that we need to find a solid way to reset this system once our armor trim is back where it should be. To do this, we're going to be using a very simple delay circuit. You're going to want a 1 block gap here and a redstone dust. Now, just for demonstration purposes, even though I'm not building the other slices, we're going to run this all the way down across every single one of your slices. Then we're going to come down to this level here, and we're going to want repeaters on 4 ticks all the way down as well, in line with our redstone dust. Again, this only needs to be for however many slices you actually have built. I'm just doing a couple here because it's easier to demonstrate. Now, we're going to come all the way up here, and where we're actually going to pull the signal from this is going to be from our observer tower here. So we want a solid block on top of the observer that's heading upwards. Block down, block up, and block down again, and one more block up. And then we're going to put repeaters on 4 ticks. Now we're going to build a glass staircase going down. And when you reach the bottom here, you want a solid block in line with your repeaters. We can now go ahead and just put redstone dust on top of all of our glass blocks. And this is where your build here is going to vary significantly depending on how many of these slices you build. The purpose of this is to not power this redstone dust here until the item has reached its correct dropper. Now, obviously, this signal does not know which slice is powered, so we need to make sure that it doesn't activate until an item has time to get all the way from here to the last slice. Now, let's go back over to the completed one, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. To get all the way through all 19 slices, you have to double back a bit. And to do this, it's simple enough. All you're going to want to do is have a solid block on the end of your line, then a redstone dust, solid block, and repeaters pulling power from it. And you can double back as needed, and then simply just bridge over with your dust. And this will make sure, of course, that you're going to power this entire line. You can't get a signal strength higher than 15, so you want to make sure that none of the repeaters, whichever your end repeater is, isn't more than 15 blocks away from both ends of the redstone line. Now, if I activate one of the slices over here, you're going to see that only this target block comes down. So when this finishes crafting and sends a signal through, we're going to see the signal come down. And as you see, it's just going to snake all the way along here until it reaches this point and triggers our little chime and resets our system. Now, if you want to install a chime for yourself, all you're going to have to do is pull a signal using a repeater from your reset system, and then you're going to want to do a note block on 6 clicks, repeater on 1 tick, 8 clicks, repeater on 3 ticks, 4 clicks. And that's going to just give you a nice little chime. If you're more musical, maybe you can find one that sounds better. Now, for those of you that intend to build the entire 19 slice system, this is what you're going to need. You're going to need repeaters on 4 ticks all the way along, and then you're going to want a repeater on 4 ticks for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 4 blocks. And then I've got repeaters on 1 tick for the next 4 blocks, or the next 5 blocks rather. But of course, you can use less repeaters if you so choose. This was just because that's how I dialed in the exact timing for the 19 slice system. So that is our entire build, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I would love to hear everybody's feedback and get to know, did you build this? How did you like it? Did you have any trouble? Was the tutorial easy to follow? All that kinds of stuff. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Bye!